Get ready to dive into two great stories full of personal dilemmas and complicated decisions. In the first, a birthday celebration turns into a scene of discomfort and surprise when a drunken mother-in-law crosses the line. In the second, a young woman finds herself conflicted when she decides not to invite her cousin to her birthday because of embarrassing behavior. Each story explores the challenges of maintaining family harmony while dealing with unexpected and complicated situations. You'll be curious to find out how each one solved these delicate dilemmas. The bar, with its walls adorned with memorabilia from times gone by, and soft lights creating a welcoming atmosphere, was buzzing with positive energy. It was the kind of place where every corner told a story. And that night, it was the perfect setting for another happy chapter in my fiancée Lara's life. The ambient music mixed classic jazz with modern hits, a combination that appealed to everyone, from the youngest to the oldest. Lara was truly enchanting. Her blue dress not only highlighted the color of her eyes, but also reflected her cheerful and vibrant personality. She moved among the guests with a natural grace, sharing laughter and warm hugs. The way she thanked every well-wisher with a genuine sparkle in her eyes made it clear how much she valued the people around her. Our friends and family, gathered around the tables and at the bar, contributed to the cheerful atmosphere. There were groups chatting animatedly, others dancing to the music, and some lost in contagious laughter. It was clear that everyone was there, not only to celebrate another year of Lara's life, but also to enjoy each other's company, strengthening the bonds that united us. Helena, Lara's mother, was a woman whose presence was unmistakable, known for her elegance and vivacity. She had the gift of captivating everyone around her. On that special evening, she was even more radiant, dressed in a sophisticated outfit that highlighted her figure and reflected her youthful spirit. Her hair, always done to perfection, shone under the bar lights, and her smile was contagious, lighting up the atmosphere. From the start of the party, Helena was exceptionally lively, toasting enthusiastically at every opportunity. Her laughter was a melody that blended with the music in the bar, and she seemed to float among the guests, always with a glass in her hand, making everyone feel important and welcomed. She shared stories, laughed at jokes, and, with her outgoing manner, kept the atmosphere light and cheerful. I always admired Helena for her energy and joie de vivre. She had a passion for life that was inspiring. Whenever we were together as a family, she was the center of attention, not because she sought the limelight, but simply because she was who she was. Her ability to tell stories, mixing humor and wisdom, was an art that few could master with such grace. That evening, as I watched Helena interact with the guests, I felt grateful to be part of this family. She had a way of making each person feel welcomed and valued. However, as the evening progressed and the drinks flowed more freely, I began to notice a subtle change in her behavior, something I hadn't witnessed before. What began as contagious joy slowly turned into something less controlled, more uninhibited. Her laughter, once contagious, now sounded a little louder, and the frequent toasts seemed to have taken her euphoria to a new level. It was clear that Helena had been drinking more alcohol than usual. Her movements, normally elegant and precise, began to lose a little coordination, becoming looser and more imprecise. She gesticulated more exaggeratedly and spoke less clearly, indicating that the drinks were starting to affect her judgment. What really caught my attention, however, were the looks she began to throw in my direction. At first, I thought I was misinterpreting the situation. Perhaps they were just casual glances, lost in the euphoria of the moment. But over time, I couldn't help but notice a pattern. Each time our gazes met, there was an intensity to them, a kind of focus that didn't seem purely casual or fraternal. This subtle shift in Helena's attention made me uncomfortable. I wanted to believe that it was just the effect of the alcohol altering her perception and behavior, perhaps making her bolder or less aware of her actions. So I decided to ignore these looks, attributing them to the drunken state she seemed to be in. I tried to concentrate on the party, the joy of celebrating Lara's birthday and the company of the other guests. Get ready to dive into two great stories full of personal dilemmas and complicated decisions. As the evening drew to a close, the atmosphere in the bar began to calm down. People chatted in hushed tones and some said goodbye. Lara, accompanied by her sister and an aunt, got up to go to the toilet, leaving me alone at the table. It was in that moment of solitude that I noticed Helena approaching. She was walking with somewhat uncertain steps, clearly affected by the amount of alcohol she had consumed. Her face, which had previously expressed restrained joy, now displayed a broad smile, but one that seemed out of context. There was something in her gaze that was hard to decipher, a mixture of boldness and something indefinable. As Helena approached, I felt a growing sense of apprehension. She stopped next to me, and before I could react or say anything, she leaned forward and wrapped me in a hug. The hug, although it might have seemed innocent, had an intimacy that didn't match our relationship as son-in-law and mother-in-law. Her perfume, once pleasant, now seemed invasive, almost suffocating in its forced closeness. Then Helena leaned in even closer, bringing her mouth to my ear. With a whisper that carried the weight of a confession, she said, "It must be very difficult to have a hot mother-in-law like me, isn't it?" The words, spoken with a tone that mixed joking and teasing, took me completely by surprise. I was paralyzed, not knowing how to react to such an inappropriate and disconcerting comment. My answer, a simple yeah, was more of an involuntary reflex than a thought-out response. I was totally overwhelmed, trying to process what had just happened. The mixture of alcohol and the unexpected situation had left me speechless. Helena, apparently satisfied with my stunned reaction, walked away with a smile, leaving me alone with my confused thoughts. At that moment, while waiting for Lara and the others to return from the bathroom, my mind revolved around the uncomfortable situation I had just experienced. As I sat there, still processing Helena's surprising and inappropriate comment, I felt a whirlwind of conflicting emotions and thoughts. Not only had the incident taken me by surprise, but it had also placed me in an extremely delicate dilemma. The relationship between son-in-law and mothers-in-law is often complex, and what happened that night had the potential to complicate it even further. On the one hand, I considered telling Lara about the incident. She had a right to know about her mother's behavior, especially considering the nature of the comment and the discomfort it had caused me. However, I feared the consequences that this revelation could bring. How would Lara react? Would it affect our relationship? What about her relationship with her mother? On the other hand, I thought about talking to Helena directly. Perhaps, in a sober moment, she could remember what happened and understand how inappropriate it was. But this approach also had its risks. There was the possibility that Helena wouldn't remember what happened or, worse, would deny that it had happened, which could lead to further misunderstandings and embarrassment. The third option, to simply let it go and put it down to too much drink, seemed the simplest and least confrontational. However, I couldn't deny the discomfort I felt. Ignoring what had happened wouldn't change the fact that it had happened, and I feared that it could be repeated or even escalate if it wasn't addressed in some way. Each option seemed to bring its own complications and uncertainties. I was torn between honesty with my future wife, respect for her mother, and maintaining family peace. The incident made me question many things, including how to deal with boundaries and respect in complex family relationships. That evening, as Lara and I drove home, I silently pondered what to do. The answer was unclear, and I knew that any decision I made would have significant implications for all of us. It was a dilemma that required thought and care, and I hoped to find a solution that would preserve respect and harmony in our family. Now it's time for you to have your say. What would your reaction be if this happened to you, and when faced with this dilemma? What would your decision be? Let us know in the comments what your answers would be. It was a week before my birthday, and I was excited about the preparations for the party at my grandmother's beach house. I had everything planned: friends, beach, sun, and fun. But there was one decision I needed to make, one that was causing me a huge headache. My cousin, always a controversial figure in the family, had a very strange habit with her boyfriend. They simply couldn't control themselves and kept sneaking off to have sex in half public, or even totally public, places. I remember her birthday in a restaurant 6 months ago, when they disappeared right at cake time. My uncle asked me to look for her, and guess what? They were there, in the car, in the parking lot, doing it. My cousin even smiled and waved at me, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. After that episode, I decided I didn't want that kind of thing at my party. I had even spoken to my grandmother, who gave me permission to use her house. I sent out the invitations to my friends, and everything seemed perfect until my mother discovered that I hadn't invited my cousin. "You can't just exclude your cousin," she told me, as if I was making a big mistake. I tried to explain that it wasn't personal, but that my friends and I just didn't want to deal with her and her boyfriend's behavior. My mother insisted that I should put up with it to keep peace in the family, but I was determined. I was a grown woman, and I had the right to choose who to invite to my party. When my cousin found out that I wasn't on the guest list, she was furious. "You're excluding me," she shouted down the phone. I tried to be as kind as possible, explaining that I loved her, but I couldn't risk her ruining the party with her escapades. She didn't take it well, and went to complain to my mother. The worst thing is that my mother tried to force me to invite her, but I didn't give in. I live alone and pay my own bills, so she couldn't force me. She even tried to convince my grandmother not to let me use the house, but I'd already told my ninth everything, so she stood by me. Now I'm here, feeling a bit guilty for having distanced myself from my cousin. We were close, but her behavior was affecting not only me, but also my friends. Was I too harsh? Am I an idiot for wanting to have a carefree party? Now I would like to know your opinion about these two stories. Leave them in the comments, and don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.